Hey everyone, hi there, this is Gayatri, back again after quite a bit. I hope you've all been good. Today I wanted to talk to you about fatigue. I know in many parts of the world we've gone into an extended lockdown. We thought there'd be relief with the vaccines coming, but that hasn't played out as we had thought. And I see a lot of you on social media, especially, sort of declare that you're really tired, right? And some of the things that you're doing to address that sense of tiredness is trying to eat healthy, sleep well, get some exercise, do the healthy, nutritious things, which is really good. But here's the thing a lot of people are missing. There are two kinds of fatigue. One is the fatigue of the body, and the second is the fatigue of the mind. And the fatigue of the mind cannot be soothed by the remedies for the fatigue of the body. So when you sleep, when you rest, when you take a hot bath, when you have a soothing environment, say with candles and music, have a nice meal, have a healthy meal, that's all contributing to the body, and that's really good. But you might still find yourself awake at 2 in the morning, or not able to sleep, or sleeping at odd hours. This chronic sort of fatigue that sets into the mind, and just wondering, how do you shut it down, right? You've done all the things in your checklist that said, this is how you sort of rest and take it easy. So why is the mind still not quiet? And that is because the quietness of the mind comes through a completely different source. You have to shut down the thoughts. What's happened is the thoughts in the mind have begun to race. They're filled with anxiety for the future, insecurities, all kinds of worst case scenarios coming to mind, the constant sound of the of doom on the news sort of pouring in. So there are all these sort of factors that contribute to what your mind is experiencing. So yes, you need to shut down on the amount of news you're consuming, the doomsday scenarios that are pouring in. But otherwise also, here are 3 tips to sort of get your mind rested. The first thing to do is to locate the mind. The mind is right now what we call all over the place, right? It's rushing here, it's rushing there, it's listening to this news, it's listening to that news. So, what you can do is give it a focal point. Some of you may remember the story from our childhood, which was about this man who managed to get a genie out of a lamp. And the condition was he had to give the genie work to do, otherwise it would consume him. And every time he gave it work to do, he finished it off pretty quick and just came back and said, "Master, what next?" And finally the man got fed up and said, "Here's a pole, just keep running up and down the pole." And that's exactly what the mind is. You've got to keep giving it something to do, otherwise it's going to tear down the house and eat you up. So when people say focus on the breath, that's what they mean. Give it something to do. So when you locate the mind and you say here, focus on the breath, if for some time you do it as a practice, you sit there and you make it sort of look for the breath, you know exactly where the mind is, you know what work you've given it, and you've given it something to do. It will wander, it will come back, it will wander, it will come back, but it remains in these spaces, right? That is how you locate the mind. The second step is to locate the mind in the body. Why do we do that? Because the breath is still subtle. It is still sort of the bridge between the subtle and the gross, the abstract and the tangible. Though sometimes you could also possibly use something like music, a song. That's when we say we have an earworm, because the mind is obsessively going around that one track. But what happens is a song can be pretty intrusive. It gets in all the time. You get tired of it. You don't want to be listening to that same thing over and over again in your head. Sometimes if it's lyrics, it triggers meaning. So you don't want to go there, right? Which is why the breath is the safest. If not the breath, what? how do you locate it in something that's tangible? Because that makes the concentration easier. Give it the body. Okay, that's why you use the sensory inputs: sound, sight, touch, smell, uh, sound, sight, touch, smell, taste. Okay, make it think about, what am I tasting now? What am I seeing now? What am I hearing now? What am I feeling now? At a very microscopic level, fine tune that microscope of the mind, let it go finer and finer until it's able to locate what exactly is happening in the present moment. This is how you tether the mind to the body. Okay, and what that does is not just locate the mind, but it locates the mind in something tangible. So you've got the intangible anchored to the tangible. Therefore, now it's not going to drift away so easily. The third thing is, now that you've managed to locate the mind, locate it in the body, tether the intangible to the tangible, you've got a firm sort of base for it. Now, what you do is start to ignore the thoughts. If you start off trying to ignore the thoughts, it's not going to work, because the mind is all over the place. You don't know what the thoughts are like. You're still in the abstract. You've got to get tangible work done. It's, if you go step one and step two and then begin to ignore the thoughts, then what happens is, the mind becomes like a child that's throwing a tantrum. And you know that sometimes you just need to ignore the child and get on with your work, and he's going to cry and throw a tantrum for a bit, and then eventually he's also going to get the message. And that's essentially what you're doing with the mind. You're saying that, look, you can cry and shout and scream for attention as much as you want, but I've got work to get done. So you need to focus on the breath. You need to focus on these points of the body. Otherwise, I'm sorry, I just can't pay attention to you. So it's going to do a little dance for a bit, and then it's just going to quiet down and do its own business. And then it'll go to the breath, it'll go to the body, it'll go wandering about. And you can just step back as observer, step back as witness, and watch it. Okay, and you say, okay, I can see that you have certain thoughts, but I am no longer obliged to follow you on those thoughts. So for 1 minute, the mind will tell you that you're nobody and you're worthless and you're inadequate. The next minute, the mind will tell you you're Superman and you're going to be a bestseller and you're going to break records by tomorrow morning and win awards and get promotion. And neither has to be true. These are thoughts based on anxieties, insecurities, fears, wishes, hopes. Nothing is based on fact. The mind will dance from thought to thought, and you are not obliged to sort of follow any of those thoughts or to give them any sort of validation or confirmation or internalize it. Once you realize that you are not obliged to follow these thoughts, your fears, your anxieties, your wishes, your hopes, and you can allocate the mind to focusing on the now, and you can get on with your life. What happens when the mind reaches that point where it is no longer getting the triggers or getting the provocations, getting the validations to go down the stream of thought, is that it begins to recede. It begins to quieten down. That's a space of equanimity. When it reaches a space of equanimity, it creates a space of stillness. It's like the waters parting. When the waters part, you get space. What you get is mental space, and that is what gets filled with stillness. So resist the urge to fill the space with thought, with work, with doing. Just be there, be in a space of stillness. Sometimes this may coincide with your sleep, in which case your mind will also be at rest and your body will be at rest, but that is more unlikely. It's more likely that your body will be at rest, your mind will still be racing. But when you get up and make it a practice to have, say, okay, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour of this kind of a meditation, where you give the mind something to do, allow yourself to come to this space of stillness, you will have rested the mind for half an hour. And then you'll find that your mind becomes increasingly alert, increasingly refreshed, very efficient, sharper, clarity, and able to declutter and just pick and choose what is actually important, and you're able to ignore all the rest. Yeah. So I hope this technique works for you. As always, you know that I don't insist on any one technique. Your chosen technique to sort of still the mind might be painting, it might be music, it might be some sort of sadhana that you already do. Do tell us more about it in the comments, or you can always email me. I'm always eager to hear more about what gives you that sense of peace. But do give it a try. And if you do, let me know how it works for you and leave questions, comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. See you soon.